Welcome to Mo's Market Pulse. I'm your host, Sara Mokaram, founder of Mo Digital Solutions, where we help businesses hit their revenue goals and thrive. On this podcast, we talk with industry leaders about their business, market trends, growth strategies, and what's ahead. Today, we have Suzanne, co founder and CEO of Brighthive. Under her leadership, Brighthive is redefining how organizations manage data. So, Suzanne, thank you so much for joining us today on our podcast. Before we dive deep into the broader landscape and your growth plans, I just want to set the stage a bit for our listeners and learn more about you and Brighthive. So, I know Brighthive was founded back in 2017, 2018,
That's
and
right.
it's evolved quite a bit since. So, could you just share the story of how the idea came about and what problem, was the problem you initially were trying to solve?
Sure. Thanks for having me on, Sarah. My co founder and I are obsessed with an age old problem that is very unsexy and continues to be a problem, even though we are now riding in electrical vehicles and we're exploring the stars and the moon and Mars and all the, incredible frontier innovations that we're seeing around us. Have, though, what is that old age problem that we're obsessed with is working with data, right? And a lot of it. Somehow human beings just cringe when you say that word, right? Do you like working with data, right? How is working with your data? Data at work is difficult. Data is hard. Data is dirty. Data is inaccessible. It really is one of those, kind of remain to me, one of the few problems where unless we crack the nut at what makes people struggle with it, we won't really move from the idea that all work can be data informed work. The idea that any company, regardless private or public, an organization, and the culture within it is going to be more data informed, is going to be more data mature. You read a lot of reports that speak about that, our ability to be more data informed. But when you actually measure it, regardless of what is, whoever's putting out the study, it always measures and trends low. Human beings are just not able to show that they are able to get to the insights that they need consistently and in exactly just the right time that they need that insight to make an informed next step or set a strategy. You typically can do that, but you need a lot of investment in people, in the modern data stack, and so forth. So my co-founder and I were looking at this, what makes data hard, and it's the on-ramp of working with data because it is fragmented, because it's dirty, it has high PII, personal identifiable information that needs to get governed. And we're producing a lot of it consistently. 90% of the world's data was produced in the last 24 months. So think about that. So fundamentally, you have an enormous amount of data work, just the load, right? And when I say data work, meaning to actually process and analyze and get the insights out. We also found that really, when you look at the payroll or labor force for any organization, the median, the percentage of data engineers, and when I say that, it's really skilled data practitioners, which includes analysts, scientists that work with data that are trained in this field, it never hovers above 3%. So 97% of an organization are data consumers, which they need to consume the data, get insights from it. They're the ones that are completely underserved. And they rely on the 3% that can. And guess what? Those small teams typically that are sitting centrally in an organization are struggling with the load. So the data engineering ratio to data work is completely off. And the data itself still, even if you could afford an army of analysts and engineers to work through it, the data itself is very difficult to bring together. Your data set is great. My data set is great. Together, we're very powerful, but we can't. And so the original mission was we need to figure out a way to allow for Suzanne and Sarah to bring their data sets together, to trust that where they're bringing it together is going to be privacy adhering, secure. And so we, in 18, we're looking at building a platform and built a platform that allows for collaborators within the same organization or across organizations, an ecosystem of partners that have valuable data sets to come together to be able to share data sets in a privately adhering way. Brighthive is Switzerland here. We're policing things like the governance model. We were policing things, the data contract. We're helping clean up the data and helping define a normalized, a schema that we both could adhere to so that the data actually maps and works together. So we really were solving the grunt work of data before we could get to the insights piece. Just how is it that we can bring data sets together across people, across different organizations, across different teams in a platform that does a lot of the grunt work that consumes 80% of the time of a data engineer. And that grunt work deals with the quality of the data, the fact that it's fragmented and dirty and needs cleansing. My name has a hyphen. In one system, it has it, EL-Moursi with a hyphen. In another system, it doesn't. So when you try to marry up Suzanne's records from multiple systems, it doesn't happen. I mean, these are all the things we know, right? It's the minutia level. And as we were building this, we were finding so many customers that were showing this to perspectives that are coming into our pipeline, and they absolutely got it, right? Because they just saw with a point and click solution, they're able to aggregate all the data that they have. And this is millions of rows. This is not, a small spreadsheet. Also, data lives in spreadsheets and now in the cloud. So it's in many places that functionally don't come together. Our platform facilitated that because the very front, the front door of Brighthive is that we have over 350 connectors to all kinds of platforms where data lives in the cloud. Plus, you can also upload PDF files. Plus, you can upload Excel spreadsheets. So we take anything, right, and be able to bring it into the platform, creating the rest of the data process that we've built. And so right away, the value proposition was very clear. The ingestion process and the cleansing and just being able to make it usable and accessible and create clean data pipelines was right there within minutes. As we were selling this for a lot of organizations that were using it as their modern data stack, the other thing for us is we built this architecture on the known reputable brands that we all know today that are in the modern data stack marketplace. So with one buy, if you haven't been investing in your data infrastructure, you're getting that with Brighthive because that is what our technology is built on. But for others that are larger, other companies that are larger who have been investing, they love the fact that we're composable. They just point their keys and they deploy our, kind of code, our IP directly on their stack, zero switching cost. So you can kind of see we're creating a lot of fluidity around aggregation of data, sharing data, cleansing data, and who doesn't want that? As we're building this company focusing on that data sharing and data collaboration, the rise of AI became prominent in November of 2022 when ChatGPT, popped up on your cell phone. And that was very powerful. We believe in Brighthive that 100% the reasoning is going and has been improving to where data work can absolutely be executed on by agentic AI. And this is where we are today. And so in 2023, we started to look at the next set of challenges that our customers are facing. And it was essentially not having enough analysts and capacity in-house. So the first was the modern data stack is very crowded. I have a lot of data inside my house and outside, and I don't know where to bring it all together in an aggregated way, in an infrastructure that is privacy adhering. So we built really the architecture of a full data management solution that made it a lot simpler to deploy and invites people across organizations as well as within teams. And it was much lighter to even learn and all that. It's not a very complicated system that was very powerful. And the next frontier was, well, now we don't have the people, right? And we are, we are researchers. We may have one or two analysts on staff. We have a lot more data to analyze in the platform than we have people. And so the next problem we were solving for is the people limitation or people capacity, lack of capacity. And when you looked at AI, we said, okay, that's it, right? In 2023, we made a bet. We said, what if we could mimic a data team by building 7 agents that work in unison? These are not wrappers on one LLM. We actually use 4 different LLMs to power our agents. So basically the 7 agents that you see on our website, we've engineered and have been working on, essentially continuing to refine, because with every iteration of these agents, they're doing more mission critical, complicated data work. But essentially it's to solve for that problem for anyone that doesn't have enough staff, right, in their company to process data, is to give you a data team in a box. So where Brighthive is today, when we sell and people buy our platform, they're getting a very robust architecture that creates clean data pipelines that is governed, that can help you understand everything from the metadata layer all the way down to kind of all the different nuances and contracts and policies on use and restricting who can access, which parts of it. So it's the classical scenarios around what makes data sharing difficult and data quality hard. We kind of solve for that in our 1.0 generation. And then our 2.0, which we launched earlier this year, is now we're bringing for you an agentic layer that actually is artificial until it's not, because it's learning from those clean data pipelines that the core platform stands up. And therefore, when you buy both, you're getting the most insightful agents working on your data, because it is that architecture that we've been building since 2018 that makes data much more fluid and accelerates time to insight. And you also are increasing headcount without actually increasing your OPEX, right? By getting 7 agents that are working in unison to answer any question, visualize any graph, write DBT code. So you were even on the data, a little bit of data engineering. We're a headless, definitely a headless visualization solution, but we are doing specific tasks that people would do otherwise, writing the DBT code, creating a Jupyter notebook, creating visualizations. And so these are all kind of tasks that data engineers and data scientists do. And that's what we mean by a data team in a box when you see that on our website.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. That sounds like such a powerful and incredible platform, really, that can add
It
so
really is.
much value.
Yeah, people say, "Why isn't everybody using this?" And that's what I
Yeah.
love. Or I'll hear things like, "We have been evaluating AI for the last 2, 3 months to figure out which one to bring. Yours is not giving me the obvious answer; it's giving me the insightful answer." And that's
Mm-hmm.
the difference, right? People are seeing that not all AI is equal. Exactly. I mean, AI is very capable. What you engineer around it in tooling, in pipeline, and guess what? It's artificial and it's not. It needs data, clean data. So our original bet in 2018 to be passionate about getting data to be clean and usable is actually servicing a much more frontier, goal, which is AI adoption. And therefore, all this clean piping of data is servicing much more insightful agents that then when you engage with it, you hopefully are trusting the output of these agents.
And so, what was your background like before you even came to Brighthive?
Yeah, I've always been a technologist. So to me, Suzanne came, to the United States. I'm born and raised in Cairo, Egypt, in the mid '90s at the birth of the at sign, to do graduate work. So I did my master's in computer science here in Chicago, and I was, not intending necessarily to stay in the United States, but I wanted to get work experience. So I'm very lucky to have started my career at IBM Global Services in the mid '90s. But Blue was a big deal. And it was the birth of the ad sign. Every single business, every single organization and industry was trying to figure out what to do with this new channel. And it was very powerful to see traditional businesses and industries from banking to insurance to mining applying UWW, to be part of the teams that were working on the very first home insurance policies and applications, for State Farm. Like that was today, you do it on your mobile app. It's such an amazing, it's just a wild ride to think about that for 30 years now, because I came in 95, that I have been a technologist through and through, looking at really unsexy, big problems in society that we're solving with software. And as I went on in my first 16 years, I always worked in big corporate, settings, from IBM to GE Healthcare to also in consulting. So then you get exposed to the financial services and retail. So big industry always, but solving and creating innovation products that are solving a real business problem with the technologies that we have. Along the path, of course, data is always a thing, right? Because with more tech, you're producing more and more. And so it was always the white elephant in the room that you can create a lot of innovative ideas and products, but then the reliance on clean data and how do we actually move the needle on that has always been something that I have had firsthand experience with in an enterprise settings. And it's hard for enterprise companies because a lot of the data lives also on still mainframe type environments. And that's actually where I started my career with IBM at the time in the hardware business, that when we were trying to digitize this to come online. And so as I kind of knew 16 years into this, so what are the biggest problems that I could really solve and move the needle on? I realized I couldn't stay in corporate, and that there were a lot of ideas that you could go solve, but that means you probably have to start your own thing too. I did my MBA at University of Chicago, so I went back to school. I actually was working full time, but went back to school and studied entrepreneurship and venture capital finance, and fell in love with the idea that there's a whole other world where if you have an idea, you can go build it. And essentially, you're betting on self. So 13 years ago, as I finished my coursework in entrepreneurship and specifically, the startup journey, I quit big corporate and became, basically a starving founder. And here we are. Brighthive is my fourth endeavor. We have 2 exits and 1 failure before this one. And I will say that it's not for the faint of heart, because at the end of at the end of the journey or along the way in the journey, what the playbook that you follow still holds true around what it takes to do something and do it really well. And I think all great companies focus on one problem, solve it really well, understand their market, understand their users, and build every single block after that on this idea. And so that's kind of my background. I was a big corporate, big culture technologist that saw the world on all the potential problems you can solve inside a company with tech. Realized after a bit that I wasn't fulfilled and wanted to solve bigger problems with more, way faster speed, more agility, but meant taking a lot more risk. And that's what I decided to do 13 years ago. And I've never looked back.
That is such a great story. Thank you for sharing. So, zooming out a bit, I want to talk about data in the AI space a little bit more. So, in your view, what are the biggest kind of emerging trends shaping how companies are thinking about ethical data collaboration in AI right now?
Yeah, I think people want to know very much, and we get this obviously, with every sales conversation, every podcast interview, do I have control? We're saying that the agents or AI is going to be the new way, right? It's going to be the new way of even living my day to day. It's not even companies at all. It's like a new iPhone influence. We can't live without it now. And so often people are concerned with, well, who's policing all of this, right? Is AI really going to have a different brain than my own? Am I losing all the control when I accept to engage in my world with these AI interfaces? And for some people, AI makes absolute sense. It's essentially the new Google search, right? They just use it in these ways, but to a great extent, it's not personal data. They're okay. And they know that Google also is using just internet data. And so there is this kind of like 1.0 relationship around it's useful, but not harmful. And then they start to see it infiltrate into their work, I think then the consideration set changes a little bit more, because since they still don't understand it, they don't want to be a kind of bad actor in this when it comes to work and be on the hook for having contributed to a false bad use of AI. And that's because inside companies, there's a lot of private data. They need guidance on that, right? So when we deploy your platform, are we essentially walking away from our ability to have control? When we deploy your platform in production and our clients' information, what kind of guardrails does the technology stack that you have create so that we can actually custom requirements for different customers that we have? Think banking, think all that. And so there's social contracts that have to be written to help people understand what it is actually is happening in an AI transaction. We find that today, I don't think you needed it as heavily back in 1995, 96 with the internet. People understood that there was data there, but it was actually the data that they were seeing come up on their browser was other companies that had websites. So you kind of were in control of what you were going to put out there. What's freaking people out today is that they don't see the equivalent of this. They know that you already have a lot of data about me. My bank does, my healthcare provider. I don't always get to know what they're going to do with it. So the first question always we get asked is, for example, Suzanne, does my data sit in your cloud? That's one of the questions. And we show that our platform is built to be on your cloud. We are not a data marketplace. We're not bringing your data here. We're not reselling any. So just even the time it takes us to show and prove, yes, we're a data company, but we're giving you tools for you to work with your data still in your house. That concept is really new because people don't understand what is the transaction that's happening when I buy Brighthive. That's going to continue to be the case. I don't believe that that's going to go away because we are at a point where we have 5 different generations of people in the workforce. You have the very young that are coming through out of college, next month, a bunch, right? And they're going to continue to be growing up in an AI adoption era. There's, Gen Z, Gen Y, still some baby boomers. I'm going to be speaking about this topic next month at Booth, which is we're in the first time having such a different range of beliefs and attitudes in the workforce. You're having elderly, teammates, and you're having very young teammates. How does a company then also help bridge the gap in technology use? Because we're hearing either adopt or die, but I don't believe you should scare people and say such big statements. From my perspective, I work very hard to explain what we're doing to preserve your identity, what we're doing to do the ethical things around the social contracts and data contracts is something very important to us. And we see that adoption of AI is about upskilling and reskilling, not necessarily, wiping out in any way. A doctor with AI, I heard this from the Mayo Clinic CIO state this in November in New York City at a scale-up event for Insight Partners. He was asked about how he deals with the resistance from doctors at Mayo Clinic that don't want to have any AI, and they feel that AI will not be a physician, will not do my job better. And his response was, a doctor with AI is going to displace a doctor without AI, not AI displacing doctors. And so you need to get to a point where you get comfortable with the use of it, but then get comfortable with the transaction that's happening and get comfortable and trust the policies that are around it. That's kind of where, at least for the last 20 months, and I would say the conversation's picked up more in the last 12, that it's not just the data alone, it's the systems, the tools, the guardrails, the people, the process. It's a lot, for people to digest right now.
I like what he said about the doctor and the AI, because that does put it in perspective and makes it make more sense too
Yeah.
about.
I mean, we never got a chance to think about if, what Brighthive is doing is helping you do a lot of the grunt work, 80 or 90% of the grunt work of data. We never had the chance to think if that happens in another way, what did I just free up myself to do? Right? Because AI and data scientists and data engineers are very skilled, very smart, the high human intelligence, innovative tasks. Well, we never really have worked through the art of the possible around what else could you do with your brain and your time and your skill when you allow for the grunt work to happen in a more efficient way. That is what I think is also what the Mayo Clinic CTO is saying is AI can help a surgeon bedside to process a lot of information about a patient and all of their history. And then you're focusing on the act of actually surgery very differently with a much more focused intention. We need more of that storytelling, I think, to get people to get comfortable with, to allow the AI to be in their life.
So with Brighthive, there's obviously competitors. So how do you guys differentiate yourself from, I don't know, traditional data platforms or emerging AI first competitors? How do you guys kind of stand out?
Yeah. You know, you're absolutely right. That I think the rise of the modern data stack is both, it's a double-edged sword, it's a curse and a blessing. Because what you have is, in the last decade, incredible number of nuanced tools that are doing very specific things for data, transformations, analytics, cleansing, governing, a lot of it. And so when we were starting up Brighthive and did it in 2018, we were solving that the market map of what to choose is too much choice, contains too much choice. You hear about the lake houses and the warehouses and the snowflakes and the redshift. There's just so many. In the end, people are told you need this and that, and just, you really need multiple. There's no one singular buy that's going to bring you all of this. So number one, the fact that we're giving you a best in class abbreviated MDS that you can right away deploy with our buy, that is a differentiation with the ETL, with the transformation layer. And this is before we got into the agentic generation. So that was very differentiating, so that then you're focusing on the reason to buy is you need this quality architecture to start creating the pipelines. Because the problem we're solving is that data sharing and data collaboration is hard. And in the end of the day, yes, there's Dropbox. Yes, there's all the different sending an email with a spreadsheet. All of this is still old school. We were trying to create a platform that you can invite people to drop in their data and is modern in its architecture. That was differentiation number one. As we continue to evolve the platform to what it has today, the next differentiation, so just simplifying the choice, and there's quite a bit of medium-sized to enterprise that need that. Maybe they invested in a warehouse technology, maybe they invested in their Snowflake, but not everything else, right? It's just to be able to say, we can figure that out for you. That's a plus. Then the next piece is now we're doing that in the service of making everybody become an analyst, because the promise of AI is everybody's going to be a builder, because it's doing that for you, right? So now we're saying, because you have purchased this platform that creates all of the modern data architecture, kind of gives you a good data foundation, then we are accelerating your ability to adopt AI in a very clean way, all still within the same buy. That becomes a differentiation. So you are getting an agentic layer to work on your data in your cloud or ours, because maybe you do have some architecture you want to pull in. It was very unique. The best way to say it was said to us 2 weeks ago on a sales call. You're in everybody's category, but you're in a category of your own. Because we are customers of DBT. We are customers of Snowflake, Redshift. This is the two flavors you can get of Brighthive. Right? We are using the best tools for every nuanced task that a data modern data stack has to have. So that's true, right? So we're in every category, but we're not doing that task only, or that is not our goal, right? We brought all of this together and created a brand new implementation of the best in class from every category to create a category of our own. And the category of our own that we're creating is one that is rooted to make those 97%, which are not data engineers, become very capable in analyzing their own data. Now, sometimes we are liked to, or compared to companies that are doing data analytics, but they're for very large companies, enterprise at scale, right? And still, they're not necessarily a clean deployment the way that we are, because if you just look at us as an analytics tool, that analytics tool category is busy. And it's not just the BI tools, but just to your point, data companies that have decided to plop AI and say, okay, I now have visualization, but that's exactly it. AI is good, can visualize. It's the 6 agents before the visualization that give us the moat. It's the 6 agents, the governance agent, right? It's the ingestion agent. Each one of those agents is a category in itself, right? To be able to automate such critical data tasks and bring them all under one roof. So I would say we win because of the user experience. We win because of this. The real IP is bringing what's necessary and only, and creating a brand new architecture that drives a user experience that everybody now can have, not just the data engineer.
And so, with target customers or new customers that you're talking with, are you having to really educate them still on, data governance, AI, and kind of how it's all working now with everything coming out? Or
Yeah, it depends. I mean, we qualify and we make sure that the ones we're talking to are in our set of criteria for qualification is if you're window shopping, we're really not going to spend much time, because the customers, the prospective customers we're talking to are not questioning if they need it. Right. So their education around it is a little further than someone who's saying, so kind of what is AI? They believe that there are efficiency gains from deploying AI. The question is, which mission critical use cases should I deploy it for? And obviously, we are in the world of data. So we believe one of the most mission critical for any company is your data, and breaking it down, analyzing it, and getting insights out of it. That's a mission critical and high value use scenario. So when we are talking to a qualified lead, there's already set agreement that they get the efficiency gains by AI. They haven't seen what we're doing for them in the data space. They agree that their data is exhausting, and there's more data to kind of get through than there's capacity. And so we're educating them on how we are doing it, the unique deployment of data, of AI to their data. That becomes where the conversation's at. And most of the time it's like, wow, why? And then this is when I told you earlier, everybody says, why is everybody using this? Because it is
yeah,
so easy and turnkey. Yeah.
right.
But if you're still kind of trying to figure out, and it's okay. I mean, there's a time and place for everybody. I think in 36 months, the case studies and the reality we'll be living will be such that everybody isn't at all asking, so kind of is this thing here to stay? It's going to be, listen, I heard or I saw that it was deployed here in this way. That's similar to a problem that I have. I wonder if it's going to be valuable for me. And then they're going to be seeking solutions and partners in a way that can help them solve that specific problem.
Right. That makes sense. So I just want to shift now a little bit to growth. So over the past year, what's been the most successful channel or approach for growing your customer base and really
Outbound.
reaching those who are interested in needing it?
Right. It has been, believe it or not, outbound emails and outbound content. First of all, let's remember it's brand new. So you are not just going to like send somebody an email like, hey, I want to show you my AI platform, agentic AI platform for data management. And they're going to say, great. How about tomorrow at 2? You have to think that this is an educate the market to capture it. They are interested in AI. They don't know what to buy. That's the point. So you have to educate the market to capture it. The channel that will do that is quality content that is focused on educating and building it in a way where people can understand very simply the real business problems. I love content that I can relate to, because this is understandable, digestible business problem. And when we are sending out that content, people say, that's it, right? What they're claiming here are my realities as well. And then we bring in the solution, we kind of pepper in the solution as a way for us to say, hey, the way we've applied AI is unique. and it's solving a problem that we all have. And describe the problem specifically as a business problem, not a technology problem. Because if we're pushing it as you must adopt this technology, then it's again still overwhelming because the average person doesn't know if that is really the right technology to adopt. We heard about crypto. Not everybody necessarily jumped on the crypto bandwagon, right? So that has been much more fruitful for us. It does take time because you're going to touch somebody 5 or 6 times by sending them quality content, podcasts. I mean, that's why I'm doing all of these so that enough of the education is out there in a snackable way that people can then decide to peek in and try. The other piece is just being able to give a chance for people to try, right? The trial is so important because again, you're asking them, think about it from our perspective, we're telling you we're going to work with your data deploying AI, right? They're not going to jump at that real quickly because they still have to make sure of all the things we said just a little while ago around the security and privacy. So we found that for us to build a qualified pipeline of great leads that will convert is to pick them up from the very beginning and be their partner in the education journey. And as we're educating to buy, educating to kind of capture them, we're allowing them to kind of move at their own pace, but we are feeding them all the things that we believe that they should know that Ushu distinguishes as well. And we're bringing down, you don't have to meet with Suzanne, try it, right? Spin it up. Put your data on here. Being able to follow up. The beautiful thing right now is that you can follow up in such simple ways that don't tax people and taking away from their time. Things like podcasts still work. AI events have not been as great for us because I don't know that, I've seen the attendees that go there are the real buyers of it. There's still the technical people that are going out there to get educated. But the decision makers, because this is a CIO buy or a CTO buy of their budget for an enterprise, those folks are out there kind of doing due diligence and scanning. And we find that between outbound, 75% of the leads come from outbound campaigns that we've run where we're putting quality content out there. And then we're going to experiment with a little bit of ads. But the quality that we want are the people that are going to take the time to come to our website, read a piece or listen to a podcast, have questions, and then actually want to engage.
That makes
There's
sense.
some channel too, I would say. Yeah, we have some channel partners that are starting up, but because the technology, and of course, like the big, the Google being part of Google Cloud and all of that, that you kind of come into it. But those are few. And I mean, at the end of the day, Microsoft, Bedrock, IBM, you're talking about maybe 10 at max, and less than that, even a handful. You're going to be in all of those marketplaces. They're not necessarily where a person is starting at the marketplace. You're assuming that they're informed when they come and engage with me off of Google Cloud partners, the ecosystem. I have to be doing my own work to be educating everybody in the mass market first. So that's kind of like, channel comes and grows because we're also active in the education play.
Right. And are there any specific segments like industries that you've seen more traction with?
Higher education, for sure. Lots of financial services because the financial services space, the regional banks, ripe for, and they historically haven't invested as, they have a lot of data, but again, it's the data infrastructure, which is our origin, plus the agentic analysis. Those two are not necessarily big investments for a majority of the market. About 80 to 90% of companies, I would say even the very top Fortune 100, have great architecture for sure, but didn't necessarily adopt all the agentic layer yet. So if you go one layer before that, you're finding that the people that haven't invested in a lot of a full modern data stack architecture, plus agentic is so brand new, those are absolutely right. And they now kind of see why is the right time to make the investment now with both at the same time. And that's our bet is we're not selling you just AI or just data architecture. We're selling you both, and one is in the service of the other.
And so, of course, with every founder, every business, there's things that come up, right, that are challenging. What has been something that consistently has been difficult about running or growing Brighthive? Something that maybe keeps you up at night and is top of your mind?
The speed by which we have to keep changing and evolving, because you have to move fast. And it's not that we're not, and I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't move fast, first of all. But there's not enough hours in the day. Like, for example, today, how do I want to write a couple more blog pieces, right? To like continue to keep my content pipeline going, right? And I want to be doing more demos with the high visibility leads that we have in our pipeline too. I want to be in them for me because I'm learning, right? I'm learning from the questions that people are asking on the sales calls so that we can refine our pitch as well. So it's like, how do you make time to be on the calls, write the content, right? help the team, because the team, we have our largest portion of our company is the engineering team working on all different nuances. But the best CEOs are also chief product officers by nature, because you have a vision for where you're taking the company and where you're taking the product. And so those conversations are also happening during the day, right? To be able to be plugged into the activity of product and engineering to help influence and direct what you're hearing from the market and what you're seeing in the product and engineering decisions that we're making. So you feel spread thin to lead multiple functions at the same time when in a growth year for us, where we're getting so much interest on what we have to sell. So it's the use of time, right? And that is a great problem to have, because we're seeing signal, we're seeing the demand, we want to go chase it, but we also have to be relevant. Every single 6 months, sometimes you're a brand new company. I mean, we've seen it. Our agents are in version 16 already, right? Because of the reasoning and AI evolving so fast. The agents that we were talking about, we started 6 months ago and we deployed, look very different today. If that doesn't, keep you up at night, I don't know what is, because every 6 months, if you're not a brand new company in the way that you are doing things, you can be left behind. And so naturally I stay up thinking, here's all the things I didn't get to today.
All your to-do list that
And
didn't.
talent is scarce. That's the other part, is people, they just hire more for sure, but also the time it takes to find talent. I mean, you want quality talent. So you're balancing keeping momentum, right? While you're also trying to consistently keep the talent pipeline as well.
And so when you reflect on moments that are difficult, whether it's in hiring, product, or customer success, what patterns do you see that you're actively trying to solve
For myself, my personal life, or for you mean for the company?
for the company?
For the company. For us, the pattern that I'm consistently solving for is, this is a complicated story that I just shared with you. It's not a B2C, I'm not selling an app. It's a complicated buy, and it's a rich story. How do I say it better and more distilled and more concise? How do I create and ignite the imagination and create excitement faster? Right? How do clearly I live in it, so I'm so passionate about it. This is not, Brighthive is not just my work. This is my mission, building this company and solving this problem, and stepping back and knowing one day that I was responsible for building a company that makes working with your data so delightful. What gets me excited about the potential of Brighthive is that one day we will be measuring delight around working with data, because AI can help you to that level on the age-old problem. Data makes people cringe. They just stay away from it. And so could there be a day where nobody has such heavy heart towards it and kind of cringes around it because it is ugly and it's not for me? Can we get to a point where anybody can use agentic AI in the way that we've designed it in a secure manner and ask questions off of the data and actually become more informed? For Suzanne, if Brighthive could be the singular tool they used to make all of their work be more data informed work, that is just brilliant. But for that to be true, I am basically making believers, right, out of everybody. They're like, there's no way working with data can be that easy. Can't be that enjoyable. Really? Why doesn't, like I said, everybody keeps, I just got it yesterday. Why isn't everybody using this? So when you hear that, you're like, I'm onto something great, right? How do I continue to get to more people faster, telling them about the mission of Brighthive, and that it is a very personal one that affects them as well and benefits them, and get them to be excited enough to try, right? That's it. I mean, it's not I always start the story with, I'm solving an old age problem that you can understand, because that is true. We were not an AI company from the beginning. We were a company that was born out of, my co-founder is a data nerd, as he says, chief data officer, chief data nerd, that loves working with data and also hated working with data. So we're like, oh, that's all of us. How can we solve that? And if we can continue to make the company exciting for people and look at it as a platform or a tool that brings delight into their lives and into their jobs, that has such versatility and value, that isn't to be feared, and gives them like basically a superpower that they never thought that they could have, because that's what this is about, then this is a great example of where software and technology is working to help people excel at what they're doing. That's what the company that we want for Brighthive to be known for as.
Such a positive, really. So, looking ahead, if we were having this conversation a year from now, what would success look like for Brighthive?
Success would be that we can step back and see the hive. So we're on our platform roadmap Brighthive. So when you log on, it's the hive, the landing screen, right? And what does that represent? The hive represents any organization. The hive is your place of work. The hive is the company that you check in every day. The hive is the culture that you live in. And on the hive, the view that you see is you see all the activity of where colleagues of yours, regardless of what function or geography they are in, have unlocked data and unlocked insights from data that they have, and they're sharing it because they did it on Brighthive. So the hive is a picture of all of the acceleration to insight that the platform delivered for people that are working in marketing, in procurement, in customer success, in sales, right? Every function has a whole bunch of data that they're sitting on. In HR, right, there's a lot of information that sits siloed in teams and sits in functions. Brighthive is the nervous system in a company. And if we are living our mission of giving everybody in the company a data team in a box where they log on, it's connected in the company's cloud to the data assets that the users have decided to put on. And by way of becoming the nervous system or the connective tissue across all the microcosms of teams, people are able to unlock insights from their individual data or team data and can share it to the company as a whole, right? All of this is happening in the hive, which means when we step back, we can measure things like, is this company more data informed? Are there people, it's people more data driven in their work? There is a place where you can get insights because the hive represents a lot of insights across, if you're a supply chain company, if you're a manufacturing mining company, whatever it is. And of course, the older you are, the more exciting this becomes for you because you're not on every technology wave, right, of data adoption or in every technology adoption altogether. And so to just step back and say, you can change, you can influence the culture of companies, you can influence jobs of people, you can drive work very differently. This is a transformation of work because simply you've created a tool that has aggregated both technology and usability in a way that you can work with the hardest asset that you have, the most valuable asset, which is data, and make everyone really in the organization benefit from each other. Because if we're all unlocking our individual data assets in the departments we're living and we're making it available, more of that insight is flowing within the organization more freely. So to us, this is the hive, and this is what we're impacting: the culture, the people, and the way the work happens because of agentic AI. Yeah.
I love the idea of the hive. And I mean, it just, that description of it, I mean, so many more informed decisions can be made.
Right.
And so many, having all those teams work together off of the same data too, right? That they're
Same
sharing.
data, because this data is in the company's walls, right? These are proprietary to assets that the company has. There's much more than even organizations realize. We find that all the time. So for us, all of this is to say it's been data leaders and technology leaders who are buying data products for data teams and technology teams. We are, for the first time, stepping out and selling directly to the 97% to everybody else and saying, we're still a technology company, we're a data company, but we are different because we're making the other side of the ship where 97% of it lives, the data consumers, part of the, invited to the party, part of the transaction, right? They're the ones that are touching this platform. When you're buying all the other tools, it's for the data engineering and IT and the heavily technical side of any organization. That's where those tools are being deployed strictly for that population. We're taking Brighthive sits outside of this for access, right? Every user in the organization is a user of Brighthive, but it is kind of our roots, or like where we're embedded, is in the technology architecture that sits on the IT side, the data architecture. Our doors are open to everybody. And that is transformation of
That is. Are there any blockers right now that could slow you down from reaching your goals over the next 12 months? And
the way that pricing is going to be different because people are not used to agentic pricing, right? And consumption-based pricing, and SaaS is different. Like, this is not about seats. We don't charge with seats. It's unlimited because we want the hive to take shape. So therefore, we want more people on the platform. We want more people to put in their data assets from wherever they are in the organization. We want insights to be flowing, and we want people to get excited at how easy it is to work with data and essentially become viral, like buzzing bees, right? So therefore, our growth doesn't come from seats. It comes from paying for a license to license the full platform, limited usage and unlimited geographies. But you are also going to be paying to the agentic, the consumption-based pricing, which is the agents and the compute costs and the inference costs, which is powers all of AI. So the thing that I watching very closely is the market's reaction to understanding a new way of SaaS sales.
And so I always like to end with a piece of advice. So, what's the biggest piece of advice that you'd give other CEOs or founders trying to grow, a purpose-driven AI-powered company in today's landscape?
You're doing something that most people don't believe in yet. You're the only one that believes. You're betting on self. You got to keep going. Then no one's going to tell you, I bet on you and I believe in you. So the only person that's on your team is you. Do not expect an audience. All of us that are betting on AI, we are believers of the technology. We're believers in the problem we decided to solve. We're bringing people along with us, but they have a choice to decide if and when they want to come along. And so if you're really passionate about what you are doing, it is a lonely journey. Stay the course. So don't fool yourself and think that this is going to be a walk in the park. Entrepreneurship in general is not for the faint of heart. But when you're also building a purposely driven AI company for everyone, you're going to be alone for a while, right? Until the market and the people join and realize what you're really doing and the impact. And that's why I'm making the argument to measure delightfulness of jobs, delightfulness of roles, measuring that somebody starts to like their job because now they feel smarter because they're able to work data for themselves and use that information and that insight to support the original tasks that they're hired to do, right? If we can create a new scorecard around our jobs and show that we're applying technology for the servicing of human beings in this way, then people are going to follow. But we've got a while for that to happen because the decision makers have to decide that that's what they want. And then they bring us into an organization and then we get users on and we support that user adoption. So there's a cycle. And it's easy to quit when you just kind of get so frustrated where you think you see it so clearly, but the rest of the world doesn't.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to Mo's Market Pulse. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave us a comment, and join us again to hear more insights from leaders coming up on future episodes. Thank you so much, Suzanne, for joining us today.
Thanks for listening.